welcome to BizTech's Investor Conversation Show. Today, our guest is Yan Li. He's the co-founder of Hive Ventures. Hive Ventures is a global venture capital firm committed to accelerating technological advancements from Taiwan. Now, to tell us more about this, welcome to the show, Yan.
Hi, Brian. It's great to be here today.
Now, Yan, for a start, give us an overview of Hive Ventures and your history.
Okay, so I was actually born and raised in Singapore, so Southeast Asia, Singapore is very dear to me. But by blood, I'm Taiwanese, so I've lived across many places in Asia. I believe that's 8 different cities, from Singapore, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Taipei, Shanghai, Beijing, everywhere. And the first half of my life, I'd say, before I became a VC, me and my partners at Hive Ventures, we were entrepreneurs. So we were one of the first wave of data entrepreneurs all across Asia, built a business that we were eventually to trudge through the trials and tribulations of being a startup, especially in China, to become a listed company on NASDAQ back in 2017. And we've, as you know, our business have taken us across, all across Asia and to the US, Europe, and UAE as well. We feel like there's so much flavor, there's so much color in Southeast Asia. In Asia, there's so much technological edge in Asia that I don't think necessarily our counterparts in the rest of the world see. And we saw it as a mission to really help early stage data, AI, software startups really scale and come out of their shell and be seen by the rest of the world. And that's why we started Hive Ventures. So today, Hive Ventures, we're still a very small fund. We're also entrepreneurs, so to speak. We're about almost coming on to 4 years old. We've invested in 18 startups across, largely in Taiwan, but with footprint across the US, Europe, and mostly in Asia. We have invested in companies that are headquartered out of Singapore or actively hiring across Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and all across APAC in general.
Okay, you raised a 13.5 million fund last year. Tell us about the thesis around that. What's your ticket size per investment, and what do you look for?
So we like to come in early. We're typically the first institutional ticket into early stage AI and data startups. By AI or SaaS startups, by AI and data, we're especially passionate about data infrastructure, about software companies that solve problems about how data is being collected, how it flows, and eventually becomes AI-empowered applications in all kinds of businesses today, from smart manufacturing to fintech to logistics, and in retail as well. So as one of the earliest investors, we come in as early as pre-seed, where entrepreneurs have an idea of what they want to build. They have a proven track record as a practitioner within the space. And we come in and help tweak that idea all the way up to Series A companies that have a prototype that's ready to go to market. And we can come in to help craft that narrative and bring our business networks from Taiwan and all across Asia into helping them grow their business across the region. So we're typically investing as little as $100,000 US dollars, that is, up to about $500,000 in our first ticket. And we are convicted investors, so we follow on into pretty much almost all our portfolio companies that have raised a subsequent round. So very hands-on. We come from all sorts of backgrounds across me and my 2 partners. So I'm more product and strategy. My partner John, he's basically a web dev all his life. So he's been our CTO. So he looks at the data and the technology itself, and Will looks at operations and marketing. So we can come in and help growth hack our portfolio companies from idea to scale.
Now, you've invested, you said, in 18 companies, right? Could you give us an idea of some of the companies that you've invested in, and what's the track record been like since you've invested?
Okay, wow. So out of the 18, think about slightly over half of them are in the SaaS-based software, enterprise software space. We like doing B2B type of business investments. That's our background. It's either B2B or B2B2C type businesses that solves pain points for enterprises through software and software as a service. The other close to half of our portfolio, they are in the more picks and shovels of enabling a really intelligent and efficient automated enterprise. So these can include data infrastructure companies, networking infrastructure companies that really enable the benefits of now 5G being implemented into many economies across Asia as well, to allow that data to first flow. And then within the enterprise, within an organization, how is data stored? How is data being shared across the organization so that people can have that and the benefits of AI or machine learning at their fingertips to really alleviate the lot of laborious work. And then finally into applying AI applications into multiple facets of the business, including in printed circuit boards. How do you, during the manufacturing process, how are you predicting anomalies in the process to yield control, so on and so forth. So really AI applications in that field as well. So it's quite a broad spectrum of B2B focused data, AI, and SaaS startups.
And now I just want to zoom in on one aspect that you talked about, really around smart manufacturing. That's very much a Taiwan thing, isn't it? Because Taiwan is a world leader, particularly in a lot of chip making processes.
So I don't think it's a Taiwan only thing. I think Taiwan, why we've picked it as one of our core pillars is definitely we have a lead in it. I think not just in chip making, obviously in the chip sector, from the design to the foundries to the packaging, so on and so forth. That is what we're very well known for. But we're also leaders in contract manufacturing for iPhone makers, for all things electronics, and also unknown leaders in printed circuit boards, in optronics, and so forth. But why these industries, while we are leaders in, they have already invested a lot of time and money and effort into building technologies that maintain their lead within very competitive sectors like these. There are competitors all around the world that are trying to compete for the same contracts, right? So smart manufacturing is really about increasing that efficiency of delivering and fulfilling your clients' needs, right? And I think Taiwan is just leader, but all across Southeast Asia, all across Asia, in fact, right? We are what we call, without any disrespect, we are a blue-collar economy, where the largest part of our GDPs are largely coming from manufacturing, from agriculture, services. These are more geared towards a blue-collar economy as opposed to white-collar, which is more just focused on the internet, banking, finance type of businesses, right?
And so that's really the dichotomy. And the clear segmentation would be Taiwan and Singapore.
Exactly. So Singapore is one of the very few economies in Asia that are very white-collar centered, but still with some parts of work manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing, right? But if you look at Asia against North America or against Europe at large, we are very common in terms of the kind of economic structures. Even Japan, it's still very largely focused on high-tech manufacturing and agriculture. So how do we productize the know-how behind smart manufacturing into products that can then be scaled all across Asia to solve very similar problems, right? So that's the thesis behind why we think Taiwan is actually a great incubator or hotbed for building these startups. We get to work with world-leading enterprises, Wistron, Foxconn, AUO, these companies, leaders in all their spaces, and then we can export these capabilities all across Asia and maybe to the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, and this is an interesting thing because, as you said, Taiwan has global leaders in it, but people outside of Taiwan don't really know a lot about the Taiwan startup ecosystem. Could you shed some light into this? Because this is quite fascinating.
So I think so. Taiwan has been. It's just traditionally that way. So Taiwan has been, I think, first shot to world fame probably during the MIT era, the Made in Taiwan era, where movies would showcase about our manufacturing capabilities, and we were kind of the backyard for everything in the world. Obviously, that has shifted a lot into more high tech manufacturing, but we've never been very good at telling the world about what's going on our island, right? So the Taiwan startup scene is blooming. I would say it's exploding compared to maybe 10 years ago. I think there's a lot more initiative and a lot more courage to leave cushy jobs in our semiconductor industry or in Google, Microsoft, HP. Every large tech conglomerate in the world probably has an R&D center here in Taiwan, right? So top engineers have traditionally been very comfortable in these, multinational jobs, just pursuing research and technological excellence. But in the past 10 years, the sentiment has started shifting, and people are willing to start businesses. And now, so we have a growing ecosystem of startups in Taiwan. Largely, I think very much of it is in technology itself. And in technology, I'm talking about IoT, I'm talking about data, AI, but also in life sciences, biotech. There is a sector of that as well. Now it's not Silicon Valley here yet. I think that's what the Taiwanese government's aspirations are. We think we have the supply of talent, technical talent that is both large and also in terms of our capability to train these engineers or tech talent. It is great. So the government would really love to position ourselves as the Silicon Valley of Asia. But I think we're working towards that goal, and I'm just excited that people are taking that bold leap to really put their ideas and technological capabilities into practice to build startups.
Now, Yan, I want to shift the conversation a little bit to the funding winter that has hit the startup world globally. What are your thoughts on this, and do you see this as an opportunity for a smaller fund like you to basically get better deals?
I think these are two parts. Okay, so the entire funding winter itself, I think it's a global phenomenon. I don't think necessarily VCs on the other side of the deal table are necessarily more excited about it and coming in with lower valuations or anything. I think that looming uncertainty is the same across startups and the VCs altogether. I think it is time. We've always expected a market correction to come within the life cycle of our fund, and to a certain extent, I think we are grateful that it is happening earlier rather than later for both all our portfolios and also for our fund itself. I think recessions always pass. Markets always find its grip no matter what the status is, and then starts crawling ourselves out of the ditch, right? So I don't see it as a very long-term phenomenon, especially not in Asia. I think the economic fundamentals are very different from our US and European counterparts, and we're resilient as seen across Asian economic crisis and subprime and every other crisis that I've lived through, right? But from a fund perspective, as a boutique fund, I think nothing changes. I think the demand, especially in a credit crunch in a winter, people want to be with the big brands, right? So it still seems to have a greater track record or of success and a playbook of generating that success. And so I think as a small fund, with or without this winter, we've always stuck to our core roots. We're operators. We are very hands-on operators that have operated multiple times within the space that we invest in. We stick to what we're very familiar with. And I think we are pretty proud that we are probably the go-to name for investments within the space for startups, right? So I think by maintaining that brand and our investment discipline, with or without a winter, I think that's the playbook for success of a fund, no matter big or small.
Now, looking ahead to 2023, we're coming to the end of 2022. What do you see are key trends in the venture space that is going to shape 2023?
I think generally from year to year, trends are pretty similar in general. I think some of these subsectors might be more highlighted going forward. With APAC at large, we haven't been as impacted in terms of venture funding into startups as compared to US and Europe from numbers perspective, right? Especially in the early stage, I think that's still blooming. Now, but where is that money flowing? Over the past few years, it has been around consumption. It's been around the more affluent consumers all across APAC, right? So technologies that enable that kind of efficiency in consumption from e-commerce and all the underlying technologies like fintech, like logistics tech, I think those will continue to prevail. But that's been kind of the dominating narrative over the last 5 to 10 years of Southeast Asian investments as it is. But if we look at how US and Europe would shift their investments after that same period, they start shifting their investments toward the subsectors that continue to make these overarching sectors more efficient. For example, in data infrastructure, for example, that's dominating the narrative in the US right now, and also in Europe. I think that's going to start trending in Southeast Asia, especially as it ties into applications like IoT in smart logistics, with digital transformation in manufacturing and agriculture. I think these subsectors will start coming up into the limelight as businesses, economies recover from COVID-19 into a new normal, and resilient businesses, traditional ones especially, are looking for new ways to stay relevant within the market. With all that scare, we're seeing digital transformation as a very big theme, especially in Southeast Asia. But now the question is, how can Southeast Asia or APAC startups answer that problem better than their US and European counterparts?
That's a very interesting thought there. And I want to ask you another thing, which all startups want to hear from a VC. What advice would you give startups who are looking to get funded?
I think I would say the same metrics prevail, but in a more stringent and more demanding way. The advice we gave to our portfolio, obviously, is one, to keep breathing, right? So do what you're doing, keep executing with absolute precision and discipline. For the because we come in really early, there are some that aren't able to develop their business model yet. They weren't intended to be. So for these, we expect them to kind of really try to drive a longer runway into their funding. So at least the next 12 months, and we are willing to back our investments to get through this winter itself. So I think for the really early stage ones, really just keep executing and keep experimenting on the market. I think that has always been a discipline. And for the ones that are slightly later stage, the directive has been to stay default alive. So if you are on the cusp of really monetizing, then let's go to market now and to see, how the market's going to respond and how our business traction is going to pick up, and then we can assess our runway from there. But really, I think I personally started a business in the midst of the subprime crisis back in 2008, 2009. So personally, I think any recession or any market downturn is actually the perfect time to build. I think you have access to resources that are a lot cheaper now. But obviously your kind of valuations and top line, you might take a cut, but just be realistic. I think there has been a lot of FOMO in the market, in venture and in early stage investments over the past few years. I think that's going to come down for sure, but really the discipline of being a startup to execute with precision doesn't change, and more so now.
It's been a fascinating conversation, Yan, but before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think there's so much within Asia that's going on. I think APAC is a very large concept, and Taiwan is a big part of this conversation as well. We really love to see more conversations across Southeast Asian startups, or APAC startups and investors really come together as a region to see, what are the opportunities that we can tap across these markets and economies, and to really build ourselves as a region collaboratively. We see a lot of that. We see a lot of that in Europe, in the Middle East, and we'd love to see a lot more of that in APAC. And thanks to BizTech Asia, I think we can all make that come together across the region.
Now, thank you very much for that little plug there, and thanks for coming on the show, Yan.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Now, we've been speaking to Yan Li, the co-founder of Hive Ventures. I'm Brian Fernandez, and this has been BizTech's Investors Conversation Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.